Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Geico 15-Minute Moto Show. I'm your host, Ralph Sheheen. Hey, if your favorite musical instrument is a chainsaw, I got the guy for you. Jesse James Dupree joining me from Jackal. How you doing, buddy?
What a more definitive instrument for rock and roll than a chainsaw. It's loud, it's aggressive, it's abrasive, it's destructive, it's stanky, it's everything that rock and roll should be. And, you just mad because you didn't think about it first.
That's exactly right. So my question for you now is, have they put one in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame yet on display?
I've got them in the Hard Rocks, and we played Woodstock '94, and had a million people in front of us, and I got a big Uncle Sam top hat I was wearing, and a mirror jacket that our light man's wife had made for me, had 1-inch square mirrors on the jacket that were attached to this jacket. It weighed about 50 pounds. And I suffered through about the first two songs with that thing on it. I looked like a human mirror ball, but it wore me out. But anyway, so yeah, here it is, 2021. I've got the detachable lens for the lady users and everything. It's all good.
That's fantastic. Okay, so normally I would probably ask you, where did your passion for chainsaws come from? But since we're talking about motorcycles, where'd your passion for motorcycling come from?
Well, I grew up, with my dad having one on the carport, and we didn't have much of a house. It was just, very lower middle class home that we were raised in, so we didn't have a garage or a basement or any of that stuff. My dad kept it in the carport, which was and he went to great lengths to keep that thing cleaned up and fighting the elements with it being out there in the carport. But he loved that motorcycle so much. And my mom used to take my dad would take the front door to the house off, and back in the 70s we had this long black and orange shag carpet that was about, you remember the extra long 2-inch shag carpet. And my dad would take the door to the house off, because that was the only way he could get that motorcycle through the front door. And he would put it into the den. And she would sit there and watch Days of Our Lives and Barnabas College or whatever, and polish on his motorcycle while he was at work. He worked at Lockheed Aircraft. He didn't have a 10th grade education, and a guy felt sorry for him, let him have a job at Lockheed, and he was the machinist. So while he was supposed to be building parts for the C5A, he would be milling out little parts for his Harley, and he would send them off and get them chromed. And so there was a gaudy, beautiful bike that he had old pan head. And so, but I grew up, it was a big deal on the weekends for my dad to, put me on. I'd sit up in the front between his legs, and my little brother would be in between him and my mom, because he'd always fall asleep. And we'd take off and ride from Georgia to Alabama and back, and go over to like Noccalula Falls and Gadsden and back, a couple-hour drive each way. And I used to look under his arm as a kid. We'd be going through those mountains in North Alabama, and I'd look under his arm and watch the sparks coming off the exhaust pipes, as he was dragging them. And he had those Cadillac fin exhaust on that old blue, and then, I was always fascinated by it. And I'll be honest with you, the day that I was able to afford and buy my own Harley Davidson motorcycle was the day that I felt like I became my own man. My dad, he lost everything in the 70s. He got laid off, and he sold everything we had, including my bicycle. And we moved to Gadsden, Alabama, where we used to ride to all the time. And we moved over there and bought a little cafe in an asphalt parking lot. We lived in a mobile home trailer in the backside of it. And but the one constant in my life was he didn't get rid of that Harley, and he would still take us on rides on that Harley Davidson. And it just stuck with me. So again, it was a big deal for me the day I was able to go get my own Harley. I felt like I became my own man. 4
of you on that Harley. 4 of you?
4 of us. And my mom with my little brother tucked in between her and my dad. And it was the old seat that had the springs in the back. And, and you would take and adjust the springs depending on how much weight was on it, and stand them more straight up and down if you had a lot of weight on it. So he'd always raise that seat up and set the springs a little bit more up whenever him, my mom, and my brother would be on the back. And I'd sit basically up on the gas tank, almost up on the gas tank, and hold on to the handlebars. He'd let me do the throttle every now and then. But so my passion for motorcycles started at that young of an age, and it never let up. And now to be sitting in, I work with the Harley Davidson Motor Company really, really close. I'm producing their annual anniversary show. It's called the Hometown Rally. This next week, Labor Day weekend, up in Milwaukee, and this will be the 6th year that I've produced it for them. And but to be sitting in a room with Bill Davison. I mean, his name's on the gas tank,
Yeah.
and into a room with those guys and actually be able to strategize and market and do the things that we do to let people know that Harley's still, a big slice of America. I mean, it's just what an incredible, story and legacy that the Harley Davidson brand has. And just very, very proud to be working with those guys. And I work with the Harley Davidson Motor Company in many ways. They put a big $500,000 building on the property a couple of years ago, and in Sturgis at the Full Throttle Saloons, Pappy Oil Campground, and they do all their activations and demo rides and just all kind of cool stuff out there. We had a record year in Sturgis, man. You got to make it out there next year.
I think I do, for one, and I think it's really interesting that so many people who are watching this probably got to know you, just like I did originally, through Jackal, right? That's where you came to notoriety with everybody. But in so many ways, now you're almost as well known, if not more so, for everything that you're doing in the motorcycle industry. There is not a major motorcycle rally I could go to where you're not going to be there. And that's not just performing on stage as Jackal's frontman, but also putting on the events, selling spirits there. You've got so many things going on, producing shows, like you said, for Harley Davidson. You are as involved in the motorcycle industry as anybody I know these days. How did that happen?
Well, you know what? I just made an honest connection with it. I mean, early on in the Jackal career, I made an honest connection with the fact that, people that work for a living, it's the same thing that I grew up doing. I mean, I used to pour concrete every day. I'll be honest with you, because we're close friends, and I'll tell you, I wake up every morning, Ralph, and I have a major anxiety attack every morning. I wake up with the damnedest anxiety attack because I think that this has all been a dream. And I think and that I've actually got to go pour concrete. And when I realize that I don't have to go pour concrete and that it hasn't been a dream, I wake up and take as big a bite out of life's ass as I possibly can. But there's not a more charitable bunch of people that'll give you the shirt off their back. There's not a more supportive group of the military than somebody that rides a Harley Davidson motorcycle. And I've just found a home with them. And it's, so is Jackal, whether it be, anything, whether it be NASCAR events or whether it be the motorcycle rallies or just a lot of the Heartland festivals and stuff, whether it be Rocklahomas or even next Saturday, again, I'm going to be producing the big event for Harley Davidson up at the Harley Davidson Museum. It's totally free show. And we got Hairball on the Thursday night. We got the big country artist Randy Houser on the Friday night. and then we got a Jackal with DMC from Run DMC. I mean, I keep saying that, but the fact that I get to jam on stage with the Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, and D is a sweet guy, but he comes out and he rides. He's got a fat boy, and he rides, but he comes out and jams with Jackal all the time, and it's always it's a big thrill for us to have him on the stage. And but we'll be doing that, and then I head to Bikes, Blues, and Barbecue down in Arkansas toward the end of September, and we got a huge event going on down there, and the guys in Winger are actually playing that one, and but I'm still going to be down there. I'll be hosting the motor. I'm giving away not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 Harley Davidson motorcycles this year. We gave one in Daytona. I was honored to be working with Harley Davidson, the VFW organization, because again, you talk about somebody who supports our veterans. The VFW is an incredible organization, and then Jesse James Bourbon, my bourbon company, and we were able to come together. We partnered up, and we gave away Rolling Daytona. We gave away a motorcycle. We gave one away in Laconia, a 98-year-old event up in Laconia, New Hampshire. And then I just gave away one in Sturgis. And Ralph, I had one of the biggest honors of my life. The VFW gave me a Medal of Honor on stage during Sturgis this year. And it got to me. I won't lie, getting choked up in front of about 15,000 people. It just hit me like a ton of bricks, because I've worked with those guys for a few years now, and I've met so many recipients of the Unmet Needs program. They have a program that benefits our soldiers, and we've partnered with Harley dealerships. Getting back to the motorcycle thing, we've partnered with Harley Davidson dealerships, the VFW, the Jesse James Bourbon, and Harley Davidson dealerships all over the country, and they've all came together to raise money and awareness for the VFW's Unmet Needs program. It helps soldiers that find themselves in financial hardship from being deployed or injured, and it's a hand up, not a handout, and it's very humbling to receive that award. But I have to share it with all the Harley Davidson dealerships that have partnered with us, and of course the VFW themselves, the Post. And I'm in Louisville, Kentucky right now. I'm sitting on a tour bus. We're playing the Kentucky State Fair, and I had the VFW the local Post, and they're going to be presenting a check. They'll probably have somewhere in the neighborhood of about a $5,000 check that they're going to present tonight that will go to the Unmet Needs Program. And just very honored to be working with those guys. And again, all the Bluegrass Harley Davidson in town, they're partners with us. And just like you said, it all just works synergetically. And the motorcycle family is something that I found honestly, and I embrace it and I'm proud of it.
Well, you are super deserving of that award because I know how much this country and our flag means to you and how much you do for our veterans and stuff. So congratulations, a very deserving honor for you. Talk a little bit about the Full Throttle, because you can't go to Daytona or Sturgis without going there.
Well, the Full Throttle Saloon is, it burnt down about 6 years ago. The original bar burnt down, and we'd been doing the reality TV show up until that point. And it was a big blow. And, Michael Ballard, the Full Throttle Saloon, that all came out of his head as far as that insanity. And that, you walk into that place, it's beyond Thunderdome for people who love badass motorcycles, beautiful women in a cold belly washer, which just happens to be Jesse James Bourbon. And, but we got it. I tell people about it all the time. And because the new Full Throttle is a tribute to what made America great. And so there's all these turn of the century machines from the Industrial Revolution that they comprise of the bar. And just like this year, there's a huge tractor trailer rig coming out of a wall and rat rods hanging on the wall. It's just, and I tell you about it, and there's no way that I can lay the shoes that are too big for it to fill. When you walk in, your jaw's still going to be on the floor. So Michael's done an amazing job. When the bar burnt down, within 90 days of the next rally, within 90 days, we bought that property, and he built that bar up out of the ground. And of course, now we have the Pappy Hoyle campground. That's 600 acres. So we have an Olympic-sized swimming pool. We have we have a big belly flop contest every day and homemade bikini contest and all that stuff. We have a firing range where you can shoot 50 caliber guns and Uzi machine guns, and we bring in cars and vans for you to blow up. We have a dirt track where they race pre-1920s Harley Davidsons, which is really cool to see them do that. We have 1,000 RV hookups, 300 cabins, tent camping for days, the best breakfast in Sturgis, and all you can eat breakfast buffet and dinner buffets. Pappy Hoyle Campground, PAPPYHOEL campground.com if you want to check it out. Make your reservations for 2022.
I love it. So I know you have a passion for racing because you and I have done a little bit of that together at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in some cup cars. Did you ever race motorcycles or think maybe you should have?
But let's just pause for 1 second. Let's think about how cool was that you and I got to spend the day with. We had Rachel Bowen and from Skid Row and
Brad Whitford.
Yeah, Brad Whitford from Aerosmith, and then AC/DC's Brian Johnson. I mean, and you and I. I mean, it's just like I don't stop for once. I never take it for granted. I mean, to the fact that you and I got, and thank you for the invitation to come and do that with you guys. And Ralph had us out there, and we raced the Richard Petty cars all around the track while they were doing the time trials at the Talladega 500. We were up in Indy having the time of our life, and we recreated that picture of the Beatles out on the golf course there. And my favorite thing that I tell people all the time is when the curator of the museum was carrying us on that VIP tour of the museum, and Brian Johnson from AC/DC jumps over the velvet rope and jumped in that old vintage Indy car.
Yeah.
And the curator didn't know he obviously didn't say a damn thing.
Yeah.
But it was funny that Brian could do that and get away with it. But what a great day. But yeah, I did not, as far as me racing, as a kid, we used to race all over the woods, and I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I actually live in a little town called Kennesaw, Georgia, but right beside Kennesaw is I-75. Yeah. And so back when I was growing up as a kid and they were building I-75, they were building it in all the woods that we used to ride our motorcycles in. So it went from trail riding to drag strip because before they opened I-75, we get out there on our bikes and we'd race each other down, from one town to the next because it wasn't open yet. But that's the extent of my racing. I'm not scared to go fast, but I haven't had a chance to ever do it competitively.
Okay, final question for you. And I've asked a few people about this that have musical backgrounds that have been on the show. Has the perfect motorcycle song been written? And if so, what is it?
Well, I happen to think that it's a song that I've got called Full Throttle. And, or actually, you know what? I had a solo album. And Jesse James Dupree and Dixie Inc. And it was me and Roman Glick on the bass guitar. Mike Froge, who played with Zach Wild and those guys, he's on the drums, and Charlie Starr from Blackberry Smoke, and he was playing guitar. And I did a solo record, and there's a song on that solo record, and you can find it on YouTube, and it's called "Money, Loving, and Speed," and "Money, Loving, and Speed," and it's just, I mean, I think it's a great race song, is what it is, whether it be cars or motorcycles. But I think it's a great motorcycle riding song. It's called "Money, Loving, and Speed," and that's my favorite that I've ever been part of.
I love it. All right, Jesse, thank you so much for joining the show. I know you got to go rest those pipes because you got to perform tonight. Folks, listen, if you're going to Daytona, you're going to Sturgis, make sure you go to the Full Throttle Saloon, especially if you're going up to Sturgis. Check out the Pappy Hoyle campgrounds. Get those reservations in. It sells out every year. I'm sure 22 will be exactly the same way. Save a little space in your belly for some Jesse James Dupree bourbon and crank up the jackal with the chainsaw. I'm Ralph Sheheen. We'll see you on another episode of the Geico 15-Minute Moto Show. We have one for you every week right here on Speed Sports. So long, everybody.